Okay, this chapter was absolutely insane in the best way possible. The MC is thinking on such a grand scale now. Digging a massive canal to connect prefectures using the excavated earth for fortified villages? Pure genius. And the detailed eye, planning for the shipyard and those paddle sailboats, especially the practical choice of junk sails and the clever hull design, shows incredible foresight. But the real game changer was the negotiation with Ling Yun, now Yunji. Watching the MC deduce his motives and then strategically offer him a governorship for bringing in potentially 50,000 people was mind-blowing. I love how the MC balances ruthless pragmatism, like the boat pricing rental scheme, with nation-building vision. It feels like the Han tribe is truly shifting gears from survival to empire building. What will Yunji actually manage to deliver? And how will integrating so many people even work? Plus, what about those sweet stalks now that the seeds are secured? Seriously, can't wait for the next part. That's right. I know a way to extract the sweet liquid inside and make something like salt, only not as white, but it's sweet. Wee Han. Tribe people call this stuff sugar, you said simply, taking a sip of tea. Oh? Our Han tribe already has this thing called sugar? Then how come I've never seen it sold in the market? Yunji was even more astonished now. He hadn't expected the Han tribe to have already produced such a miraculous substance. Could its production method be similar to salts? We have, but it's very rare and impure. Years ago at the spring fair in the Western Valley, I saw reddish-brown sugar that looked like dried bloodstains. A tribe called Zhu made it from the grapes they grew. But it had many impurities and wasn't as sweet as these sweet stalks. So I never really thought much of it until I tasted the sweet stalks you brought this time. That's when I got the idea of producing sugar in large quantities. You explained again. The method for making sugar wasn't particularly magical. Just extract the sweet juice, heat it until it becomes viscous, then let it air dry naturally. That was the basic principle. Even in this world, you weren't the first person to make sugar. You were merely planning to improve the process using a more scientific approach this time. Really? That's wonderful. As long as the chief has a way to make that thing called sugar, I'll transport all those sweet stalks over right away. But chief, will making sugar require preparations? Can we manage it this season? Yunji's question was actually a way of probing for information. He was simply too curious about the sugar-making method and couldn't resist asking. You thought for a moment. There wasn't really anything that couldn't be said. After all, the technique itself was quite simple. Anyone could learn it just by hearing it described, but knowing how didn't mean you could actually do it. If you really wanted to control it, it would just take a word from you. Making salt was even easier, wasn't it still firmly in the hands of the collective? About this sugar making, you've tasted the sweet stalks. You basically just chew them in your mouth for the sweet liquid. And the remaining fibers have to be spat out. So the sweetness is actually all in the juice. We just need to use tools to squeeze the juice out first, right? And then, it's still juice. How do you turn it into something like salt? Yunji grew even more curious. Then pour the juice into a large pot, heat it while stirring continuously, until it's boiled down to a caramel color, thick and viscous like glue. At that point, you can take it off the heat. If you want to make hard candy blocks, pour it into pre-made molds. After it cools naturally, you'll get amber-colored, translucent hard candy blocks. If you want to make small grains like salt, pour the boiled sugar syrup onto a copper-clad table and use a spatula to turn it over and over. During this process, the action of turning the sugar cannot stop. As the sugar slowly cools, it will turn into fine brown sugar like flour. As for turning brown sugar into white sugar, I'm not entirely sure about that, but the process should involve dissolving the brown sugar in water. After it's completely dissolved, filter it several times to get lighter-colored sugar water. Next, add some bamboo charcoal to the light-colored sugar water. Use the bamboo charcoal to absorb the pigments inside. Finally, you should get even lighter-colored sugar water. Then evaporate the water, and what's left is decolorized sugar. Although I've never done it, I estimate that even with this method, it's impossible to make sugar as white as salt. At best, we could probably produce light yellow sugar. That should be the highest level our Han tribe can achieve currently. Although you had never made sugar yourself, in your past life, you had watched some videos titled Learn Pure Handmade Sugarcane Sugar Production. In an era where production and life were becoming increasingly advanced, industrialized, modernized, and focused on efficiency above all, people paradoxically began pursuing wellness again. The internet was flooded with videos featuring titles like Pure Natural, Pure Handmade, Intangible Cultural Heritage, Artisan Spirit. The traditional handmade sugar-making process was roughly like that. Anyway, the people in the videos made it look quite simple. Although the environment here was somewhat lacking, you were the chief. With just one word from you, all the resources of the entire tribe could be mobilized. Would making a few blocks of sugar really be that difficult? Though you spoke in great detail, your pace wasn't slow. But this proved difficult for Yunji. He had been listening very intently, it was true, but he had only been learning the Han language for a year. Simple conversations were no problem, but the technical terms spilling from your mouth, words like dissolve, filter, translucent, molds, left him utterly bewildered with no idea what they meant. In fact, it wasn't just him. Technical terms like these were really only understood by the Han tribe elders and the group of women involved in boiling and making salt. Workers in other fields rarely encountered these words. But given the situation, you had already said what needed to be said. It wouldn't be appropriate for Yunji to keep asking. It would seem too deliberate, making others wonder if he had ulterior motives. Being a smart man, Yunji wisely refrained from asking further questions. In the time that followed, you first assigned Yunji several short-term tasks. One was to purchase large quantities of sweet stalks and sorghum seeds. The sweet stalks would continue to be sold, but in the future it would be our own people selling to our own people, an internal commercial activity. Therefore, the Ling tribe would temporarily have to pay a higher portion of taxes, especially for high-profit goods like sweets. The surplus could be used for small-scale experiments with several sugar extraction techniques, first to see if they were feasible and what specialized equipment needed to be developed. Then once your own tribe began cultivating sorghum, mass production could commence. Another task was to draw a complete map of the marsh, marking the 20-odd lake islands Yunji mentioned. While at it, conduct another lake-clearing operation to relocate all the tribal populations from within the Great Marsh. You had other uses for those larger lake islands. As for the tribes and populations along the shores surrounding the Great Marsh, they couldn't be disturbed randomly for now, because you hadn't decided exactly where to establish the new commandery. Firstly, it couldn't be too far, or it would slip from the Han tribe's control. Then there was the issue of development direction. Judging by the Han tribe's current situation, its overall sphere of influence was a strip running from west to east. The west was mostly mountainous, the center heavily forested, and the east consisted of plains and the Great Marsh, with two rivers running through the middle. Expanding eastward meant entering a vast marshland, definitely unsuitable for large-scale development. Westward expansion mostly involved mountainous terrain with no major roads or waterways, making governance costs too high. Therefore, development could only proceed north or south. The extent of the southern sphere of influence hadn't been clearly determined yet, and you intended to let Liu Yang Commandery handle the development of the southern territories anyway, given its proximity. Conversely, the northern territories were rich in resources but hadn't been effectively occupied. Previously, this was due to a lack of manpower, but now that Yunji had promised 50,000 people, it was necessary for the Han tribe to establish a foothold to the north. North of Hanyang Commandery, beyond Fuma Pass, lay an area of hilly grassland. Another day or two's journey further north led to a forest zone and gradually rising mountains. This stretch of hilly grassland, sandwiched in between, though not particularly wide, was definitely long. The overall terrain of this region sloped from high in the west to low in the east. The furthest point explored westward was the original settlement of the Zhao tribe, characterized by higher elevation and open terrain, where they used to graze saiga antelope. moving east. The terrain gradually lowered, transitioning into plains, with the easternmost end bordering the Great Marsh region. This entire long, narrow strip featured hilly grassland topography, extremely suitable for animal husbandry. If fully occupied, this area could serve as the Han tribe's military horse breeding base and could also be used for large-scale breeding of cattle, sheep, alpacas, and donkeys. The area in the middle, near the two rivers, could be used for building cities and relocating populations, developing agriculture along the riverbanks. Of course, this wasn't the crucial part yet. The key point was that during the recent Fuma Pass Annihilation battle, the cavalry had, for the first time, discovered a forest within a 2-day ride northwest of the pass. This forest didn't have many other types of trees. Eucommia trees uniquely dominated the area. You recognized the Eucommia tree not because its bark was used in traditional Chinese medicine. In fact, you still weren't very clear about the actual medicinal effects of Eucommia bark. The reason you knew this tree species was due to another characteristic of Eucommia. The Eucommia tree is actually a type of rubber tree. Its bark, roots, leaves, fruit peels, and seeds, no matter which part, when broken by hand, reveal white, web-like filaments stretching between the broken pieces. These white substances are actually high molecular weight polymers, commonly known as rubber or plastic. The reason for saying this is that Eucommia gum is quite different from the rubber from traditional rubber trees. Rubber trees produce latex, a liquid sap, which is collected and processed to obtain rubber products. However, Eucommia trees do not produce liquid rubber. All their gum is stored within various plant organs. Another characteristic of Eucommia gum is that its physical state changes with temperature variations. You knew this mainly because Eucommia gum is a raw material for specialty rubber, with many applications in military and high-tech industries. You had always paid relatively close attention to military matters, and moreover, China's project to develop Eucommia gum dated back to the early days after the founding of the People's Republic, proposed to the premier by Soviet experts based on China's actual conditions. You had a vivid memory of such significant events. Eucommia gum is generally produced by first pulverizing materials like bark, leaves, fruit peels, and seeds, then dissolving and filtering them, followed by reacting with an alkaline solution to extract cotton-like flocculent matter. The final product, kneaded into a ball, looks much like chewed gum spat out. When this Eucommia gum is air-dried at room temperature, it becomes very hard. If press-molded into a product, it becomes extremely rigid upon setting. For instance, if molded into a cup, it becomes a plastic cup that makes a tapping sound when struck. However, if this Eucommia gum cup is soaked in water above 60 degrees Celsius for a few seconds, it immediately turns into elastic rubber, pliable and easily kneaded, like a tire's inner tube. In this softened state, if the cup's shape is altered, it will replasticize into the new shape once the temperature cools down again, becoming hard plastic. Therefore, it is a high molecular weight polymer that can transition back and forth between the physical states of plastic and rubber depending on temperature changes, which is why it's called specialty rubber. Based on this characteristic, this special material is commonly used in modern times to make prosthetic sockets, essentially making a large cup, soaking it in hot water, fitting the residual limb inside and letting it cool to conform perfectly to the limb's shape. Of course, you weren't thinking about making prosthetics. You were thinking about how to turn Eucommia gum into rubber. The Han tribe didn't have a great need for plastic right now, but rubber was desperately needed. Firstly, because you had already invented pencils and were preparing for widespread adoption. With pencils emerging, how could their trusty companion, the eraser, be missing? And to make erasers, you first needed raw rubber. Secondly, rubber wheels. Hollow pneumatic tires would be difficult to make, but that didn't mean they were impossible. In reality, the key technology for those wasn't so much the rubber itself, but rather the small valve stem. Besides, even if hollow pneumatic tires couldn't be made, producing solid rubber tires would still be a significant improvement. They would be far better than the current wooden wheels in terms of slip resistance, shock absorption, and grip. Qualities wooden wheels simply couldn't match. In addition, other traditional rubber products could also be manufactured, such as rubber soles, rubber hoses, the crucial air seal valve component of the valve stem, and even simple inflatable rubber boats were not out of the question. Of course, even if they could actually be produced now, the output would be very limited. Merely satisfying the need for erasers would already be quite an accomplishment. Therefore, considering all the above, you decided to establish the new commandery northwest of Fuma Pass, at the junction of the Eucommia forest and the grassland. This would also facilitate better exploitation of the natural resources here. The magnetite mine on the Salt Lake floating island not only produced iron, but also harbored abundant associated mineral deposits, including silver, lead, saltpeter, and sodium. It was not only a vital source of materials for the Han tribes, weapons and tools, but also one of the main production centers for the raw materials of Han tribe currency. In terms of resource importance, there wasn't a second location like it in the entire Han tribe territory. Traveling east from this place for 4 days brought one to the northern part of the 8 Treasures Mountain copper mining area. The terrain here was also wide-open plains, bordering the Great Marsh to the east, backed by Treasure Mountain to the south, with forests to the west and grasslands to the north. The small plain by the lake boasted lush water and grass, and various rare and exotic beasts frequently appeared. Examples included the pocket-sized horses, about the size of corgis that you had seen before, as well as the blue horse antelopes, horned deer, and giant turtles captured previously. There were also giant river beavers roughly the size of huskies, primal cranes over 2 meters tall, and ancient giant geese. Other waterfowl and fish were innumerable. The large size of the creatures indicated an ample food supply. Of course, when they were well fed, humans also had more food. Logically, such a fine place should have been inhabited by tribes. However, when you arrived 2 days later with Dashu and Yunji, you found no traces of permanent human settlement. There were some signs of hunting parties, but no residents. Yunji, what do you think about establishing the new commandery in this location? We could move those tribes you mentioned living on the lake islands here. These tribes are accustomed to cultivating rice, collecting bird eggs, and hunting waterfowl and fish. This place is right next to the marshy Great Marsh, even after moving. Here, you can still go into the Great Marsh to fish and hunt. It should be a better fit for your way of life. As for the tribes along the shores of the Great Marsh, they merely live near the water. It's not like they truly cannot live without. They also rely on farming, hunting, and gathering. There's no need for them to stay right by the lake. I plan to move this group westward, settling them along both banks of the upper Liuyang River. That area is also near water and can meet their living needs. What do you both think? You stood on a small hillock, asking the 2 men beside you. Not far away, 4 terror elephants were frolicking and grazing contentedly by the water. Yunji's eyes lit up when he saw the place. Setting aside any strategic geographical significance, he simply liked the living environment. You proposed moving the populations from over 20 lake islands here, which naturally included the Ling tribe. Since it concerned the future lives of his clansmen, how could Yunji not be cautious? Yet he couldn't find any fault with the plan. Chief, let's make it here. I don't know about other tribes, but our Ling tribe clansmen will definitely be willing to live here. Yunji immediately stated his position. This location is indeed suitable for settling the tribes from the Great Marsh. Moving them elsewhere, like to the high grasslands in the northwest, forcing them away from the water to learn horse riding and sheep herding, would certainly cause trouble. Furthermore, although this place is separated from Liu Yang Commandery by Treasure Mountain, it conveniently encircles the Treasure Mountain copper mine within our Han tribe's own sphere of influence. This allows the combined strength of 2 commanderies to jointly protect and develop the mine, which will be very helpful for many of our future endeavors. Also, regarding transportation, Traveling by water from here to Liuyang Commandery is very convenient. While getting to Hanyang and Liuyang isn't easy, it's at most a 3 or 4 day journey to Xitong County. As long as the road is improved, transporting supplies in the future won't be a problem. If that road proves difficult, contact can also be made with Fuma Pass via the grassland route. It's at most a 1 day ride on horseback. Dashu, having served as a commandery governor for nearly 2 years, could now analyze many administrative matters quite logically under your guidance. He had basically guessed most of your intentions behind choosing this location. As he analyzed, both you and Yunji, standing beside him, nodded frequently. You were affirming Dashu's analysis, while Yunji was just realizing the depth of consideration behind the chief's choice for the new commandery's location. This also led Yunji to reassess Dashu as a person. Yunji had met and spoken with Dashu several times before, but never understood him as deeply as today. Previously, in Yunji's eyes, managing tens of thousands of people as a commandery governor, aided by the Han tribe's many advanced production methods and lifestyles, seemed achievable for himself too. That was why he had boasted and asked you for the position of commandery governor. But looking at it now, this role seemed not so easy to fill. However, he had earned this position through his own abilities. Giving it up was out of the question. Didn't know how to do it? Then he just had to learn more and observe more. He wasn't stupid to begin with. With new sources of knowledge available, could he possibly fail to learn? The three of you confirmed the site for the new commandery there, and then returned together. The next day, you sent a message to Hanyang Commandery, ordering them to escort 300 slaves, who had already had their big toes cut off, to aid in the construction of the new commandery. Simultaneously, you ordered the recruitment of willing artisans from both Hanyang and Liuyang commanderies, offering generous terms to ensure they could settle down and work immediately upon arrival. This long, narrow strip of grassland north of the Han tribe's existing 3 commanderies was essentially divided by you into 3 new commanderies. The new commandery furthest to the northwest was primarily responsible for developing animal husbandry. The terrain there was higher, and water sources were not abundant. For cultivation, only sorghum and wheat could realistically be tried. Given these circumstances, you aptly named this new commandery Muye Commandery, Pasture Wilderness Commandery. Another commandery was established along both banks of the upper Liuyang River. This commandery did not administer territory across the river separately. Rather, the settlements on both sides were unified under one commandery's management. Because this commandery monopolized both river banks, water resources were readily available, making it suitable for cultivating large tracts of farmland along the river. Furthermore, the farmland here not only had to sustain its own population, but also bear the responsibility of supplementing the food deficits of both Niuwei and the mining area. Your main purpose in establishing a commandery here was simply to create a rear support base serving the mines. Therefore, you named this commandery Xingang Commandery, New Steel Commandery. Further east was the area along the Great Marsh that you had just inspected. The terrain here needs no further description. After Niuwei completed the handover of the entire prairie region's sea salt trade with the Modun tribe of the grasslands, the Xin Tribe had now completely relinquished direct retail rights for the prairie white salt. They sold it directly wholesale to Modun and concerned themselves no further. However, in order to secure trading rights for the Xin Tribe's bronze weapons and stirrups, Modun also had to provide a secure trading zone for the Xin Tribe. This trading zone was fixed. Firstly, it provided a safe base for the Xin Tribe on the prairie, and secondly, it served to store goods transported from Bamboo Island, functioning much like a logistics transit hub. Having arranged all this, Niuwei did not forget his true purpose, for coming to the prairie, to find the Han tribe, engage with them, and ideally live among them for a time. If he could learn some of their techniques, that would be even more perfect. The Han tribe's ceramics, their horse carts, their woolen cloth, everything was so miraculous. How exactly were they made? How many other wondrous things did the Han tribe possess? Niuwei's heart was filled with questions and curiosity. Thus Niuwei led a contingent of 100 men, each with 2 horses, laden with gifts, cattle, and sheep, as well as enough dried rations to last several months, embarking on a long journey northward, in search of the Han tribe's traces. This journey lasted over a month. After making inquiries in various places, Niuwei discovered that the Han tribe hadn't come to the prairie to sell goods this year. He didn't know if something had happened within the Han tribe's main territory. Although unclear about what had occurred, he learned from many nomadic tribes that the Han tribe's trade caravans always came from the mountainous region north of the prairie. With a direction established, the subsequent steps became easier. After finding an entrance into the mountains, Niuwei and his group searched for areas suitable for human habitation. Wherever the Han tribe was, people still needed to survive. Moreover, they were quite certain that the Han tribe understood farming and cultivation, which made the search even easier. Farming required water sources and large expanses of flat land, so they simply needed to follow the rivers. When they encountered other tribes along the way, Niuwei would offer some gifts and inquire about the Han tribe. For the first half-month, Niuwei found no useful clues. Some tribes they met hadn't even heard of carts pulled by oxen or horses, let alone seen them. Some even, upon seeing Niuwei's group all mounted on horseback, immediately bowed their heads in worship, mistaking them for divine beings capable of commanding wild beasts. Of course, there were also tribes who coveted the large number of cattle and horses they carried. But Niuwei's men were all carefully selected, skilled horsemen, proficient in mounted archery. Even if outnumbered, they could rely on the unmatched mobility of cavalry to escape with minimal losses. After wandering through the mountains like this for about a month, they finally found a substantial river, large and wide enough. This river they deemed significant was precisely the lower reaches of the Liuyang River. Following this great river, over 100 meters wide, further north, Niuwei and his men soon made discoveries. Firstly, they encountered tribes who knew about the Han tribe. Although these natives hadn't had much contact with the Han tribe themselves, they had heard of such a tribe from others. This situation finally brought a glimmer of hope to Niuwei and his companions. As they continued northward, the information they gathered became more detailed, progressing from "heard from others" to "we've seen the Han tribe's caravans, and we've bought things from their trade teams." Until today, when they once again heard news regarding the Han tribe. "You are also going to the Han tribe?" asked a native man in his 30s, gesturing in surprise, while speaking somewhat non-standard Han language. "That's right. And you are? Are you also going to the Han tribe?" Niuwei quickly noticed the difference between this group and the tribes they had previously encountered. "Yes, our tribe is preparing to formally join the Han tribe. I just returned from the Han tribe this time specifically to bring my clansmen over. I see you are all riding horses and have brought so many cattle and sheep. But your clothes and headdresses don't resemble the Han tribe's trade teams. What do you do? And judging by your question, it seems you don't know where the Han tribe is." The native man who had been questioned grew curious about Niuwei's group's identity. "Oh, we are a tribe from the south. We raise some cattle and sheep ourselves. We heard you can trade for good things with the Han tribe, so we wanted to go exchange some." Niuwei lied casually. "People are bringing cattle and sheep directly to the Han tribe's doorstep now?" The native man was initially astonished, then reflected that since it involved the Han tribe, perhaps it wasn't so strange after all. "Brother," Niuwei began, "listening to what you just said, you went to the Han tribe and came back, and now you're taking your entire tribe to join them?" As he spoke, Niuwei took a strip of salt-cured beef jerky from a subordinate nearby, cut off half with a bronze dagger, handed it to the native, and started eating the remaining half himself first. This was a gesture of goodwill, showing willingness to share food, and by eating first he indicated the meat was safe. Niuwei had mastered such simple social skills. Whenever asking for directions, he would offer a small gift in thanks, as naturally as people in later times might offer a cigarette. The middle-aged native accepted it without ceremony and took a large bite before continuing. "That's right. Before the snows, at a gathering, I saw a nearby tribe had changed drastically. Everyone was wearing clothes and shoes made of unknown materials. After asking, I heard them talk about the Han tribe. They all said how good that tribe was, and that they were currently recruiting people for work. Just by working, you could exchange for good things, not just cloth for making clothes, but also salt, iron pots, porcelain bowls, and the like. And they provide meals, the kind where you can eat your fill every time. I was very interested at the time, so I had them take me to see it for myself. But when I got there, I discovered, what happened? Were they lying? Niuwei couldn't help but interrupt curiously. No, the Han tribe was much better than they described. They really do provide food there. As long as you're willing to work. And it's not dangerous work, just a bit tiring. But hunting and gathering on your own also takes effort. And crucially, success isn't guaranteed every time. But with the Han tribe, things are really stable. Meals are on time, and there's never a shortage. Not only do they give you food, but when you leave, they also give you some money. Money is a really good thing in the Han tribe, something new they just introduced. You can use it to exchange for all sorts of good things. I received some myself. Hehehehe. As the middle-aged native spoke about his time working for the Han tribe, he became quite talkative. Every time he recounted these experiences to his clansmen, it garnered everyone's attention and envy, bringing him considerable pleasure. Niuwei strained to understand the native's words, picking out useful information. The Han tribe was recruiting outsiders to work for them, providing food and also distributing goods. What was going on? What was the Han tribe doing that required so many people? But that wasn't the crucial point. The key was that this man had indeed been to the Han tribe, and they were currently heading towards the Han tribe. Didn't that mean they were going the same way? Then they could simply travel together. The thought of finally having found the location of the Han tribe and soon being able to reach it filled Niuwei's heart with excitement. Oh, is that so? Then you're truly remarkable, brother, to have done so well with the Han tribe. Hearing you speak makes me even more eager to see the Han tribe sooner, but we've come from afar and still don't know the way. How about you let us travel with your tribe? I see you have 300 or 400 people. Here, brother. You'll surely need a lot of food along the way. Coincidentally, we brought plenty. Let us provide the food for everyone on this journey. All we ask is that you guide us to the Han tribe, brother. How about it? Niuwei gestured towards the cattle and sheep behind him, immediately making the proposal to the leader of this native tribe. Hearing such a good offer, the native leader was also tempted. Honestly, the food they carried was indeed insufficient. The journey from here to Liuyang commandery would take another month or so, and their stored food definitely wouldn't. Lest they might very well have to hunt and gather fruits along the way. Previously, he had taken 30 clansmen to the Han tribe. Upon returning, they had received some wages, but they hadn't been willing to exchange it all for goods to bring back. They only traded for essential white salt. Grain was currently scarce even within the Han tribe and wasn't sold externally. Besides, even if they could trade for it without pack horses or carts, they couldn't bring much back anyway. Now someone was willing to provide food, merely asking to be guided to the Han tribe. Since his tribe was heading there anyway, it seemed taking them along wouldn't be a problem. This group had so many cattle, horses, and sheep. They were practically rolling in wealth. They probably wouldn't harm his tribe's people, right? His people really didn't have much worth stealing. Thus, the native leader quickly agreed to Niuwei's terms, consenting to guide them to the Han tribe together. In return, his entire tribe of nearly 400 people enjoyed a rare meal of meat at noon, along with a bamboo tube full of corn porridge for each person. The pot used was an iron pot the native had bought from the Han tribe. The dried meat and corn were provided by Niuwei. While eating, looking at the corn porridge served in a rough bamboo tube, the native leader became even more surprised. How do you have the Han tribe's corn? I've only ever eaten this in the Han tribe's territory. I heard only they have it. Where did you get this? Hehehe, our tribe grows this ourselves. Does the Han tribe grow corn too? Ha ha ha, what a coincidence, Niuwei said meaningfully. You grow corn too? Yes, our tribe specializes in growing this. It's our staple food. Of course, we also raise cattle, horses, and sheep. What does the Han tribe call this corn? Niuwei briefly explained. Oh, so that's how it is. But the Han tribe doesn't specialize in corn. They grow more rice over there. Corn is only a minor crop. And this corn really isn't as tasty as white rice, the native leader remarked with some feeling. Niuwei, meanwhile, appeared quite pleased. He suddenly realized that chatting with this native could indirectly provide him with information about the Han tribe. For instance, although the Han tribe also grew corn, it wasn't their main crop. Their staple food consisted of something called rice, eaten as white rice. The two groups thus came together harmoniously. To accommodate the natives' pace, Niuwei and his men began walking on foot. After traveling like this for 2 days, as familiarity and understanding grew between the groups, Niuwei proactively had his pack horses help carry the native tribe's small children. Coupled with the fact that they no longer needed to expend effort searching for food along the way, their overall travel speed increased significantly. After several days of acquaintance, the native leader became increasingly relaxed and began proactively showing Niuwei the coins he had earned in the Han tribe. "This is the money you were talking about? You can exchange this for anything?" Niuwei asked in surprise, holding a 1 wen coin made of brass. He exchanged glances with his clansmen beside him, as if they all understood something unspoken from each other's eyes. That's right. There are others with different patterns, sizes, weights, and colors, and they can be exchanged for different amounts of things. But these coins can also be exchanged amongst themselves. They have Han tribe characters written on them, indicating the value, but I haven't learned them yet. Right now I can only tell how much it is by looking at the picture, the native tribal leader explained, displaying the various different coins in his hand. Niuwei widened his eyes and examined them closely. Finally, after obtaining permission, he picked them up one by one for careful inspection. These coins were exquisitely made, with clear patterns and designs. They also looked very new, as if freshly minted. Judging solely by this metal casting technology, Niuwei knew the Han tribe's level was leagues ahead of the Xin tribe. More crucially, these round metal pieces the native leader showed him, called money, all looked as if they came from the same mold, completely identical. Coins of the same denomination were identical in size, thickness, pattern, and even the orientation and angle of the patterns. How was this achieved? At the Xin tribe's current level, forget about making even one identical coin. This kind of repetitive replication, with each individual piece maintaining the same level of intricate casting, was simply unattainable for them. However, they weren't lacking in the metals used for making money. Whether it was copper, referred to as purple gold, or silver called white gold, the Xin tribe possessed both. You could exchange this stuff for anything in the Han tribe? A bold plan gradually formed in Niuwei's mind, but before that, he also gleaned some things about the Han tribe from these coins. For example, the ears of grain on the 1 wen coin. They looked like some kind of plant, but definitely not corn. There were also pictures of transplanting rice seedlings, plowing fields with oxen, and 3 types of beasts that the Han tribe raised, or perhaps revered. Finally, the Yuan denomination coins had many strange designs that Niuwei couldn't decipher at all. Of course, the most striking feature was the portrait of a person on the reverse side of every coin. "Brother, who is this person on the coins? Why is his likeness on every single one?" "Well, I heard he's the chief of the Han tribe. They say he's very capable. Not old, but exceptionally clever, and he taught his people many things they didn't know before. For example, salt production, weaving cloth, cart making, farming, and animal husbandry. The chief taught them all these things. To the people of the Han tribe, he's like their god. Moreover, there's a saying circulating within the Han tribe that this chief is a child of heaven. That's why he inherently understands the uses of all things and how to utilize them. Even with a piece of rock, he can find a way to smelt iron from it, and use the iron to forge useful tools and sharp weapons." The native chief explained this much, But there were some things he left unsaid. He had seen many surrounding tribes and encountered even more through the Han tribe. Everyone had their own beliefs, ranging from small things like flowers, birds, insects, and fish, to fire, wood, water, and earth, and even grander things like the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, or even deceased ancestors. But worshipping a living person like the Han tribe did. That was the first time he'd heard of such a thing. However, considering the Han tribe chief's various deeds, worshipping him like a deity didn't seem entirely unreasonable. Perhaps he really was sent by heaven to benefit humankind. Niuwei listened intently, learning something that astonished even him. The Han tribe chief truly seemed capable of anything. Was he really a child of heaven, sent to bring fortune to humanity? It was hard to say for sure. Besides, in this era deeply steeped in animism, the notion that there are no gods or spirits in the world simply didn't exist. Pushing aside these strange thoughts, Niuwei stopped pondering and reaffirmed his original intention. Where the techniques came from wasn't important. He just wanted to learn them, if possible, of course. The two groups resumed their journey north. Along the way, they encountered other tribes and groups of people. After conversing, they discovered some were heading to the Han tribe to work as laborers, while others, even groups as small as a few dozen people, were preparing to join the Han tribe. There were also more complex groups, ranging from a dozen to 80 or 100 individuals, composed entirely of wild folk, those pitiful people living in small clusters of 3 or 5, without even a tribe. These wild folk had been gathered by enterprising individuals who told them they were being taken to a place where they could eat their fill and face no danger, simply by helping that tribe with daily work. The wild folk had received benefits, perhaps animal hides, food, or white salt, things sufficient to gain their trust and persuade them to follow. Niuwei was curious about this matter, so he pulled one of the leaders aside. After bribing him with a bronze dagger, he finally learned their purpose. The Han tribe takes in wild folk, you know. As long as they're healthy, even a minor disability is fine, as long as they can farm and work. You didn't know? The conditions for accepting new people into the Han tribe are different now. Those without resources or many companions are treated as wild folk. They can only help the established tribe members farm their land. They have to work for 2 years before receiving the status of formal tribe members. That thing is called, oh right, household registration. But large tribes joining are fine. As long as their population is over 20, their chief can receive different noble ranks based on the population size and the amount and usefulness of the things they bring. What's a noble rank? Niuwei asked, puzzled and curious. Well, I can't exactly say what it is, but it's probably similar to status within a tribe. For example, the chief gets the first share of food and women, then others second, third, and so on. That noble rank is similar. The higher the rank, the more things you're allocated. But the Han tribe doesn't distribute women or food. They distribute land that can grow grain. Then what benefit do you get from bringing these wild folk over? Niuwei asked again. Heh. To make money, of course, selling them to those with high ranks. You don't understand. People with high ranks in the Han tribe have lots of land, lots of grain, and lots of money, but they also have a lot of work to do. Their own households can't handle it all, so they have to find ways to look for wild folk outside. But these people with ranks weren't ordinary people in the Han tribe to begin with. They're basically all minor officials or something like that. You know, the kind that manages people. Like the squad leaders in other tribes, those heads who lead people hunting or gathering, though they manage different things. These people have endless things to do. Where would they find the time to run around outside searching for wild folk? So I specialize in finding them for them, just exchanging them for a bit of money. The man held the bronze dagger Niuwei had given him, clearly very pleased. After all, metal items were rare, especially weapons, which the Han tribe didn't easily sell to outsiders. Niuwei frowned and pondered for a moment. Once he felt he mostly understood, he asked another question. So how do you know all this? You seem very familiar with the Han tribe. Hey, of course. I was among the earliest group of people who worked as laborers in the Han tribe. It's been almost 2 years now, but I never actually joined. Why not? Didn't you say the Han tribe is very good? Niuwei asked again. Sigh, didn't I just say? When I first went back then, it was just work, and then you could exchange for some things when you left. If you joined the Han tribe, everyone got a house. Everyone farmed together and everyone shared the grain. But it was so tiring. There was endless work every day. I found that those who started working with me, after joining, apart from getting a house, their other conditions were actually less comfortable than mine. They worked no less than us, but the things they were allocated weren't as much as what we got. And not only did the Han tribe provide our room and board usually, but they also gave us things when we left. After finishing work each day, someone had already cooked the meals. I just had to eat. But them. After joining, not only did they have to work during the day, but they also had to figure out firewood themselves and cook their own meals. To eat meat, they had to wait for the tribe to distribute it. If they didn't want to wait, they had to raise livestock themselves. But raising livestock meant spending effort feeding them. Endless damn chores every day. This year, things changed. The Han tribe chief made changes again. Everything was privatized. Land was distributed. Grain was no longer handed out. How much you ate depended entirely on what you grew yourself. It feels even worse off than us outsiders who work as laborers. At least the Han tribe still feeds us, right? But that noble rank is a good thing, though. The higher the rank, the more things and status you get. But for outsiders to get a rank, the only way is based on how many people and useful things they bring when they join. So you bring these wild folk firstly to exchange for money, and secondly, you want to use these people to secure a noble rank for yourself? Niuwei inferred. That's about the gist of it. But I haven't saved enough money yet. Once I have a bit more, I'll find another batch of wild folk and bring them to join. Then why are you saving so much money? What's the use? Niuwei was eager to learn more about the Han tribe. What do you think? Money is a really good thing. With money you can buy oxen, buy horses, buy carts, afford grain and clothes. If I don't save up more now, I won't have the chance once I join the Han tribe. Do you know how their own Han tribe people live? To plow with oxen, you have to go to the authorities and pay to rent one. And the ox isn't even yours. Carts are even harder. They're not something ordinary people can afford. A four-wheeled cart costs more than a boat. The most crucial thing isn't even how much those things cost. It's that those ordinary tribe members spend most of their time every day farming. How could they have time to do other things to earn money? Wanting to buy a two-wheeled handcart and an ox for work, who knows how many years they'd have to save. Would I suffer that poverty like them? No, I won't. It's fine like this now. I'll save up more money first, and I'm not subject to the Han tribe's control. I have plenty of time to focus on making money. Once I've saved enough money for my future life, I'll join the Han tribe, secure a noble rank, get a position where I don't have to do much work. Wouldn't that be more comfortable? Having said his piece, the wild folk leader walked away, toying with the bronze dagger in his hand. Niuwei didn't follow, but stood there mulling over the meaning of his words. At the same time, he gained a deeper understanding of the Han tribe. It seemed life for the common folk there wasn't all that great. So why were so many tribes still actively choosing to join? Regarding this question, during the subsequent journey, Niuwei posed his confusion to the native chief he had spoken with initially. You ask why we're joining the Han tribe? Isn't it simple? To live a better life, of course. But I heard from others that the Han tribe has these ranks or whatever. And those ordinary people aren't living well? Niuwei voiced his question. Well, that depends on what you want. The lives those ordinary tribe members live. They have their own land, their own grain. They can eat as much as they want. If they can't eat it all, they can sell it for money. Although the money isn't much, it's definitely enough to live on. As long as you don't aspire to be a city lord or some prefect, what's the use of so much money anyway? like those ordinary Han tribe members, although they don't have horses or carts when they go out. Why would they need to go out? I don't know what others think, but the people of my tribe are all willing to go. My tribe already has nearly 400 people. We don't know how to grow grain, raise animals, or even weave cloth. Every day we can only rely on hunting and gathering to get food and hides. But for a tribe of several hundred, wanting to eat their fill at every meal, wanting to live safely every day. From my perspective as chief, that's truly difficult, but it's different in the Han tribe. There are many people there, it's safe enough. No enemy can defeat so many of us. They also have city walls there. No wild beasts can kill us either. It's stable enough there too. We farm so we can eat our fill every day without needing to gather. We raise livestock so we can eat meat without risky hunting. Without animal hides, we can still weave cloth to make clothes, even if you really don't. Want this kind of life and want to be a leader? The Han tribe has plenty of work available. Learn some skills properly, and there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. You can even enter workshops to earn wages. You can make several tens of coins a month. Isn't doing anything better than starving one meal and being full. The next like now. Niuwei nodded thoughtfully, quickly understanding the issue. It was simply a difference in needs, leading to different conditions for satisfaction. Those people fundamentally weren't aspiring for greatness. They just wanted a safe place to live, to fill their bellies every day, eat meat every few days, not freeze to death in winter, and have a woman to bear children. That was enough. As for the man he met earlier, Niuwei had encountered similar types in their Xin tribe. Such people were gluttonous and lazy, always thinking they should get the same share of resources whether they worked a lot or a little, too lazy to cultivate their own grain, yet still fantasizing about becoming superior to others, able to hold others down to satisfy their inner arrogance. From this perspective alone, the Han tribe was similar to their Xin tribe. They had all sorts of people, and the tribe's people's thoughts weren't monolithic either. This must be a common characteristic of large tribes with many people, Niuwei finally concluded. However, he also perceived a crisis in this matter, a threat originating from the Han tribe. It would be one thing if the Han tribe were merely technologically more advanced than them. The crucial point was that the Han tribe was also rapidly expanding its population through various means. How many people did the Han tribe have now? Niuwei didn't know, but he understood that just along this journey, the people they encountered, who wanted to join the Han tribe, numbered 1,000 or 2,000, and who knew how many more such people there were. After all, this was only one direction he had traveled. What about the other directions around the Han tribe? Did they have other ways of absorbing population? This population growth rate was truly terrifying, far more frightening than the Xin tribes. The Xin tribe was on an island after all. There were only those few tribes on the island, and they had been subdued by the Xin tribe long ago. Although the tribes had different names, the Xin tribe held actual control. All in all, the population was only just over 80,000. Although there had been some growth over the years, it hadn't exceeded 90,000. And this was just an estimated number. The Han tribe had household registration and identities, and dedicated officials responsible for these matters. The Xin tribe had none of that, just their writing tools like bamboo slips, charcoal sticks, and shell knives limited the use and spread of their writing. The more Niuwei made comparisons on these small details, the more he sensed the Han tribe's strength. It seemed that for any situation, the Han tribe possessed more mature management methods than they did. Simply put, the Han tribe operated more efficiently, was more dynamic, and grew rapidly, whereas the Xin tribe, due to its geography and various other reasons, had already hit its development ceiling. If things continued like this, even if the Han tribe wasn't the Xin tribe's match right now, it wouldn't take long for the Han tribe to completely surpass them, even in terms of population. They absolutely could not make an enemy of a Han tribe like this. They truly couldn't afford to provoke them. It seemed this trip to the Han tribe required him to lower his own status as much as possible, adopt the posture of the weaker party. While not yielding on major principles, he still needed to adopt the right attitude. The Han tribe was simply stronger than them. This was an undeniable fact. He absolutely must not be arrogant or conceited. Otherwise, forget learning techniques. Whether they could even return alive would be questionable. Thinking about this and that, following the footsteps of the natives, after more than a month of arduous travel, Niuwei and his companions finally arrived in the midsummer season at the end of the 5th month, at the legendary Han tribe, a large settlement called Liuyang Prefecture. Crossing the mountain ridge before them and passing through a dense forest, a vast plain suddenly opened up in the distance. To the right, the great river shimmered, its banks lined with seemingly endless farmland. There was corn, familiar to Niuwei, but even more prevalent was a kind of tall grass, growing in muddy fields or watery ponds. On the other side of the fields, several earth-yellow city walls were arranged neatly in a row, with identical cities flanking them to the east and west. Niuwei didn't know the significance of this arrangement, but he could see that the same character fluttered on flags, atop all the city ramparts. He recognized that character. It was the Han that appeared on the Han tribe's many goods. Is that where the Han tribe lives? How strange, they seem to be built entirely of earth. Walls made of earth? Aren't they afraid the rain will wash them away? Behind Niuwei, his companions, who had endured hardships to trek here with him, stared in amazement at the distant city walls. Look quickly, there seem to be people up there. In an instant, hundreds of eyes turned towards the ramparts. All right, what's all the fuss about? There are always people on the Han tribe's walls. They're sentries guarding against enemies and wild beasts. Let's go, it's getting late. The native chief who had led Niuwei and his group all this, Wei spoke loudly, his tone carrying a hint of playing host. This was understandable, of course, since he had specifically come to join the Han tribe. Okay, everyone quiet down. Let's go. Be careful in a moment. Don't carelessly provoke the Han tribe people. Remember, this isn't our tribe, and it certainly isn't the grasslands. Yes, Elder, Niuwei's men replied in unison. With that said, the combined party slowly emerged from the edge of the forest south of Liuyang Prefecture. Such a large group suddenly emerging from the woods immediately attracted the attention of the sentries on the city wall. Normally, this might not have been a big deal. Ever since the labor market was established in Liuyang Prefecture, tribes coming to work or join had often arrived from that direction over the past 2 years. But this time, a troop of horsemen had come from the south, and quite a large one, at that. At least 100 riders. Not only did each man have 2 horses, but they were also followed by numerous cattle and sheep. This was definitely not normal. Among the southern tribes, apart from the extremely distant nomadic tribes, who could possibly muster so many horses, cattle, and sheep, and organize a cavalry force of over 100? More crucially, although the distance made it hard to see clearly, the sentry was certain that the arriving people were not wearing Han tribe clothing, nor were they flying Han tribe banners. Han tribe groups, whether military or merchant caravans, always carried banners if they were mounted troops. These are not Han tribe people. Reaching this conclusion, the sentry instantly became alert and quickly shouted to his companions. Someone, beat the drum, quick, beat the drum. There's a mounted troop from an unknown tribe. They're not ours. A comrade resting nearby, preparing for the next watch, heard the shout and shot up from the ground like a sprung coil. Adjusting the conical hat on his head and seeing the horsemen to the south, he ran without a word to the drum tower on the wall and began pounding the great drum. Dong, 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 dong. A rapid series of drum beats erupted, the thunderous sound instantly echoing in all directions. This was the alarm drum, with only one atop each city wall section. It was enormous, each drum face seemingly stretched taut with nearly a whole cowhide. One drum meant 2 cows, and its sound certainly lived up to its cost. The moment the drumming began, the alarm was heard throughout the 6 surrounding earthen cities and among the tribe members scattered about working in the vicinity, in the fields along the river. What's happening? Have enemies arrived? Don't know. Probably. The alarm drum can't be struck casually. Striking it without reason is punishable by death. Then what are we waiting for? Run, go home. Listening to the drum, it's from the south wall. The enemy is to the south. Let's go back through the east gate. Never mind heading straight home, just get into the nearest city gate, quick. Go, go, go. Everyone listen to the squad leader. See, if anyone's still in the fields nearby, call them all back. Inside the walls of the various districts, hearing the alarm drum, women immediately came out onto the city streets, shooing their children playing outside back indoors, then firmly bolting their doors. The reaction in the various workshops was different. The women mostly organized themselves to defend the workshop entrances, while the men, led by their foreman, grabbed various tools and assembled. Then, organized according to their usual work groups, they followed their foreman towards the south gate where the alarm drum was sounding, and in the newly built official administration area to the far west, Da Shu, sitting in the prefect's main hall reviewing documents, frowned. That was the alarm drum. What had happened? Grabbing his ring-pommeled long saber from the weapon rack beside him, he jogged into the main courtyard of the prefectural office. Seeing the bewildered minor officials around him, Da Shu immediately roared. "Bring my horse! Assemble the city! Guard soldiers! Close all city gates! Recall the commoners outside! Personal guards, follow me! Let's go see what's happening!" Da Shu's series of commands gave the bewildered officials from various departments a focal point, and they all acknowledged their orders and hurried off. Once his subordinates brought his horse and his dozen or so personal guards had assembled, Da Shu immediately led them towards the city where the drumbeats originated. Meanwhile, Niuwei and the accompanying group of natives were also bewildered. What was going on? What had happened over there in the Han tribe settlement? Old brother, what's happened with the Han tribe? Those people seem to be running back into their settlements, and what's that sound like thunder? What's going on? Niuwei asked, slightly nervous and very confused. What's happening? Those cities aren't just residences. They're also for defending against enemies. For them to be running inside in broad daylight and in such a hurry. Could they have encountered enemies? Oh, right, that sound. It's the drumming from the city wall. They usually beat it every evening when closing the city gates, just not this loud. This sound is so loud. It must be the alarm drum. Whichever direction detects an enemy, that side will beat the drum as a warning. After saying this, the native chief and Niuwei looked at each other. They listened again to the direction the drumming came from. It was precisely from their direction. Then, puzzled, they both glanced behind them. But besides their own tribe's people, there was no one else back there. Could it be? We are the enemy! It's you! It's you! Niuwei and the native chief's voices sounded simultaneously. Both eyed the other warily, with suspicion and scrutiny. What are you looking at? It's definitely you. I've been in the Han tribe territory for half a year, and I've never heard of any tribe besides the Han tribe having so many cattle and horses. Even those grassland tribes they talk about wouldn't travel so far to the Han tribe, right? In the past, even if they wanted to trade cattle and horses, the Han tribe went to the grasslands themselves to trade. But you came here on your own. Quick, tell me, are you enemies of the Han tribe? The native chief loudly questioned Niuwei, simultaneously taking a few steps back, his bone spear instantly pointing at Niuwei. Seeing their chief react this way, his fellow tribesmen immediately aimed their spears at the horsemen beside them. These people they had traveled with for over a month. These people who had supplied them with food for a month. Niuwei was also stunned. Was this how the Han tribe dealt with enemy invasions? They considered them enemies? It seems the Xin Tribe and the Han Tribe are indeed currently in a hostile relationship. But why? How did they know our group was from the Xin Tribe and not a nomadic tribe from the grasslands? Could it be the Han Tribe is also hostile towards the nomadic tribes? That's impossible. Han Tribe merchant caravans are very popular on the grasslands. I haven't heard of any conflict between them. While Niuwei was briefly lost in thought, the reaction from the Han tribe side intensified. More and more banners appeared on the city wall, along with more and more figures. The city gate facing them had already been closed. A troop of several dozen horsemen rode out from the western city, then entered the middle city through its west gate. Before long, the drumming abruptly ceased. Da Shu had reached the tower above the south gate, gazing into the distance at the cavalry troop ahead. They were indeed not Han tribe forces. You did well, these are not our people. Though we don't know if they are enemies, we cannot be careless. Da Shu first affirmed the sentry who had decided to sound the alarm drum, then had one of his personal guards, skilled in archery, use a longbow to launch an arrow far ahead. He used the arrow's landing point to draw a warning line, hoping the other party would see it and halt their advance. Niuwei frowned slightly, looking at the incoming arrow. What did this mean? A warning. After a moment's thought, Niuwei decided to go forward himself to negotiate. They had truly come with sincerity this time, with no intention of remaining enemies with the Han tribe. However, since the Han tribe side had only shot a single arrow, there should still be a chance. They were being relatively restrained. Thinking this, Niuwei shouted loudly to his men behind him. I'll go over myself and see. You all stay here. If I am killed, don't worry about me. Just turn around and go straight home. Then tell the chief to guard our island well in the future and not attempt contact with the Han tribe again.